Toni Erdmann is a German-Austrian comedy drama about an approximately 60-year-old divorced man, a studentless music teacher with a passion for bizarre pranks involving several fake persona, who, after the death of his dog, decides to visit his adult daughter, who is pursuing a career in business consulting and is working on an important project as a corporate strategist in Bucharest, Romania. When this attempt to re-establish this relationship is proven to be off to a rough start, the father decides it is time to start firing on all cylinders by doing what he thinks he does best, and after fooling his daughter that he has agreed to depart back to Germany, he shows up one evening as the smooth-talking alter ego Toni Erdmann, claiming to be her business consultant and coach, and surprisingly enough, she starts playing along with his little game. Now, this film has been almost universally met with high critical praise, it has received thunderous applause at the Cannes Film Festival, and it is rumored that it has a pretty high chance of winning the Oscar next year for Best Foreign Film. And to be honest with you guys, after initially watching it, I can't say I completely understood why. I mean, it's not a bad film by any stretch of the imagination, but I couldn't really understand why people think this is so special. So I thought, hey, why not do a little research? So I went back, I watched the director's 2 previous films, and I also watched the press conference they did at the Cannes Film Festival this year, and now it is pretty clear to me that, okay, Maren Ade, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, she really likes telling these very sad stories about people who are in an attempt to mend broken relationships. And they're almost like these very sort of beginning of the end / the end of the beginning sort of stories. Especially in comparison to everyone else, which by the way, I liked more than this film. I think it is slightly more superior to Toni Erdmann, but hey, that just might be my opinion. There we have a couple. We have a romantic relationship in which the girlfriend is desperately trying to reconnect with her boyfriend, and the boyfriend is just not having it. He is extremely rigid, extremely uncommunicative, extremely uncooperative even, but it is made pretty clear that he still loves her. So that's what I mean by this sort of beginning of the end / the end of the beginning sort of stories, because these are stories about people going through phases, like going from one chapter of their lives to the other chapter, but they are still are in the same book. You know what I mean? Am I making any fucking sense here? So that was interesting, like discovering this kind of perspective or outlook on life of this director, or just the types of stories she wants to be telling. And it was quite interesting with her new film, Toni Erdmann. She found a way to tell a similar story, but in quite a refreshing way. Also due to this whole gender thing, like here it's actually the man who is trying to make amends, and it's actually the female character who is extremely rigid and who just doesn't want anything to do with that. Now this film left me with a couple of burning questions. One of the major ones was, why Romania? Why place this story here? It didn't really not that it didn't make any sense, it just seemed like random to me, you know what I mean? And nothing against it, I live in Romania, so I obviously have some sort of fondness for it, and I was especially excited to see some of the Romanian actors who show up in this film. That was really like a pleasant surprise. And her answer to this question during the press conference, it was quite endearing to say the least. She said that first and foremost she enjoys Romanian cinema, so yay. And second, she thinks that there is a comparison to be drawn between Romania and Germany, because the two countries were in similar situations, especially after the fall of communism, because of many multinational companies forming and many joint projects happening. So I was like, okay, interesting, but taking that and also going back to your previous point, it was also sort of like a personal choice, wasn't it? And the more and more I think about this film, the more and more I digest it, the more and more I start to get the feeling that I'm getting some sort of grasp of it, the more I start to believe that possibly without this film being a biographical film, it still feels incredibly personal. I consider Maren Ade to be a filmmaker who's sort of like the opposite of someone like a Xavier Dolan, for example, who also makes very personal and very sad films, but in a much more deliberate, much more flashy, and much more like a stylized manner, I would say. And that's cool, that's awesome, I'm a fan of his, and his movies suit his personality. Someone like Maren Ade, who is a lot more shy and a lot more modest, that personality that she has comes through her films as well. This might be one of the major reasons why this film didn't wow me at first, initially, because everything about it is just so incredibly subdued and restrained and underplayed. So much so, in fact, that the director actually said during this very press conference that the scene in the film that got the most applause out of the audience during its screening at Cannes, she actually was considering to not even include it in the film. That's how restrained she tried to be. That's how timid timid and how subtle this movie is. It doesn't have any music at all. It really goes to show how this film tries to not leave things up to interpretation necessarily, but keep you on an emotional level, keep you pretty grounded, you know what I mean? The fact that it can have this emotional transparency, like not only do these characters never talk about their emotions, they don't even really try to show them, they actually are trying to hide them. And I think like basically all of the blanks are filled in by your mind. This is a film that I think really respects its audience, that really doesn't try to manipulate it. And speaking of audience and manipulation, I did see this at the cinema with other people, with a friend sitting next to me, and we did laugh. Like sometimes I was laughing at something and nobody else was. Happens, embarrassing, but whatever. Sometimes everyone else was laughing at something and I wasn't. Well, that also happens. But if I didn't see this with other people, if I just watched this alone, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have laughed, except for one scene. It's like in the third act of the film, more towards the end, it's when the daughter character is supposed to be hosting her birthday party. And wouldn't you know it, she can't zip up her dress, she gets stuck in her dress, and the doorbell is ringing, the guests are already arriving. And I'm not telling you anything more about it, you're going to have to see it for yourself. And it's the moment when the film becomes a legitimate comedy. I mean, up until that point, I was like a little skeptical. I was like thinking, okay, this has comedic elements, but I'm not really sure this is a comedy. But that scene, it's a pretty long scene, but it's legitimately hilarious. It's consistently funny, it's a great idea, and it's a nice little bow to tie everything up. It's going to be the scene that will remain in your head when you think about this movie, and I loved it. So did I have a change of heart concerning Toni Erdmann? Yeah, I believe I did. I mean, it's not necessarily a personal favorite of mine, but I do see the magic in it, and I definitely recommend it. It's a unique film. I don't think I have ever seen anything like this. You will probably never see anything like this. I also recommend, as I said in the beginning, this director's other films, especially Everyone Else, which I think I have to mention that it somewhat lacks the comedic elements of Toni Erdmann. Like, that film is indeed a lot more depressing in my opinion. And thanks for watching my review. As always, I highly appreciate it. See you later with other reviews. As always, until then, take care everyone, and goodbye.